Hello, and welcome to LMC Cast. I am your host, Gladys Dibble, broadcasting straight from the studio on the Avenue in Mamaroneck, New York. Today, I get to speak to an amazing financial advisor and very dear friend of mine, Richard Leimgruber. Welcome, Richard.
Thank you, Gladys. Thank you for having me, and thank you for LMC for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about myself and what I do and how I help others. Looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's going to be great to be able to hear your expertise. I know you have a lot of passion for financial advising, and I always hear it when we speak. So tell me a little bit about how you got into financial advising.
Yeah, sure. Well, I can say that I was a small business owner when I got out of college, working in a pizzeria, owning a pizzeria. And I realized very quickly that it wasn't the type of life that I was looking for. And I was very blessed to have an older brother who got into financial planning before me. And 25 years ago brought me into financial planning. And one of the things that I was struggling with was, like every other person out there, paying bills, budgeting my money, and really understanding what a savings plan can do for me. And if it wasn't for a financial advisor as my brother who came to me, I would have never been able to accomplish what I've done today.
Right.
And so that led me to tell my brother, I'm really into this, and I could really do something like this myself. And that's kind of where all the magic started to happen 25 years ago. And stayed with a national firm for 18 and a half years. Decided this is something that is obviously a life career for, and opened up my own practice within that same company. And recently, 2.5 years ago, I moved over to Onyx Bridge Wealth Group, which is a local private wealth advisory firm in Westchester County. And I'm extremely happy that I'm here and that I'm able to continue to help the people that want my help.
And you know what? As I was growing up, my parents never sought help from a financial advisor. And I have to tell you, I've learned so much from you just from our conversations that I need my parents to actually sit down with you, because,
yeah.
I mean, my parents used to save money underneath, under their bed.
Right.
And nowadays, I think you need guidance. And there's so many things that my parents don't know that you would be able to help them with.
Sure.
And that brings me to retirement. So let's tell our viewers out there just a little something about how they can prepare for retirement. So this is such a big transition, right?
Yeah. I mean, well, let me start off by just saying that there's all types of transitions. Transition happens when you're in one situation and a major change will happen, whether it's happened already or it's coming up.
Right.
One of those major transitions is retirement. Another transition can be, graduating college and getting your first job.
Right.
Another one could be having a spouse, being married, and looking to buy a house, starting a family. The biggest thing that is a change for most people is when it's time to, hang up your hat and retire after whether working for 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
One of the examples that I can give of why it's important to speak to a financial professional, whether it's a financial advisor or a trusted advisor, is that you could potentially take a look at what your current situation looks like and determine with certain information and looking through an analysis of what actually the likely outcome is most likely to be before actually retiring. So one of the things that happens when somebody's about to retire is they need to understand what type of income can they expect in retirement. And there's all sources of income that you can have. It can be from Social Security. It could be from a defined pension plan. It could be coming from your local savings or a 401k. It could be coming from investment income. And the idea is to know more about what that would look like for you actually before pulling the trigger and retiring.
Right.
And what I tell most clients is that, look, anybody can retire, but can you retire comfortably in a lifestyle that you've become accustomed to? And there's ways of determining that. Number one, what do your current expenses look like? And are those expenses expected to change, whether they go up or down when you do decide to retire? And then, take a look at what income you have to help offset those expenses.
Right.
And I think it's very important to understand that health insurance will change, whether you're going on Medicare, whether you need a supplemental to that Medicare or not. Those things all cost money. A lot of people, when they do retire, their company might have been paying for their health insurance all along, but when they retire, realize that they're no longer getting health insurance from anybody, and it's now your obligation to pay for those things.
And it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, very expensive.
Yeah.
With the modernization and the advancement of all the medical things that we have today, people are living longer and longer. And one of the common issues that we talk about when you're looking to prepare for retirement is, addressing any kind of long-term health care, right? Whether that be, dementia, or whether that be any kind of cognitive decline or disabilities. What is that going to look like to you, and how are you prepared to be able to make sure that you're not going to go broke because of those things? So,
right, or leave your family in a very difficult situation, right?
Right, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
So, any transition that you're having in life, what I can tell you is that a financial professional can certainly help you determine what are the right steps to take, and hopefully help you prepare for those things that maybe you're not aware of, right? And a lot of times what a financial advisor will do is help you mitigate those risks. And it's all about how to help somebody get over those risks, whether it's a risk of living too long and outliving your retirement savings, or whether it's a risk of having to sell your house and move somewhere that you can afford to live because expenses have just gone up. Right. Yeah. So
that's great advice.
Yeah.
So along those lines, what would you say to college students? Because I've been hearing, and there's a lot of videos out there that I think our kids are struggling, right? They're going to college, they're in debt, they come out, and they can't pay their bills because they are stuck paying so many loans.
Sure.
So what advice would you give to college students?
Yeah. So, number one, I'll tell you that it's never too early to speak to a financial advisor or somebody that might be able to help you, right? So even if you're a college student just graduating and you have this looming, college debt that you don't know how to work it or how to manage it, go speak to a professional, right? Somebody who's going to know more about it than you. And what I would say is, just like when my wife asked me to fix something in the house, I turn to her and say, let's call the plumber, let's call the electrician, because they're going to do a better job than I am. And then they're going to wind up charging me to fix the mistakes that I did on top of it, right? So, I think there's a value in speaking with somebody like a financial advisor as a college student that can help you understand, number one, what that debt looks like versus what the income is that you're expecting to make, right? So a budget is a good example, and the word budget is supposed to be a bad word, but we think it's a great word, because what you're doing is you're setting your expectation of how much money you can spend and be able to make sure that you're not defaulting on any kind of debt. Another piece of advice I would give college students and young people at large, whether you're going to college or not, is to pay attention to your debt. Your debt, your credit score is so important to the people who want to lend you money in the future, right? So if you're a college student and you're paying what you're supposed to be paying, it's going to help you increase your credit score. But if you're not paying attention to that stuff and you're just letting things go and not paying attention to it, you don't realize the amount of damage that you're doing, because later on in life, if you have a poor credit score, You and I might walk into the same car dealership and want to buy a car.
Right.
And I get a very low interest rate because I have great credit.
Right.
And somebody who doesn't is paying double the price for the same car because of their credit.
Right. Or getting denied because
Or
you
getting
have
denied, right.
bad credit.
Yeah.
It's key. Having a good credit is key.
Absolutely. And it's also key to building wealth. If you can get a loan that costs less than actually what you're able to get in a savings account. So as an example, if you have a car loan that's at 3.5%, but you're able to put money into a bank right now and get a 5% interest rate on a money market, you're ahead of the game, right? Somebody who might have a bunch of credit card debt and their credit card debt is 21.5%, but their money that's sitting in their savings account is only earning them a 1.5%, we'll say. My advice to them would be pay off that debt. Right. And, because what they're doing is they're giving interest to that same bank. It could be, any bank out there. You're paying them for that interest. And at the same time, they're keeping your money in their account and they're paying you nothing.
Of course.
Right. So I think, understanding how to manage your debt and understanding how to make sure that you're making the payments that you're making is extremely important, especially when you're young. So when it comes to college and you're graduating, have a plan and talk to a professional about ways that you can set up an affordable way to make sure you're making those payments and you're not messing up your credit moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that's great advice. It really, really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as a parent,
Yes.
right? So we have 11-year-old kids. What would you recommend that the parents out there do for their children and not wait until they get to college, right? Like, what can we do now or even as newborns when they're born?
Sure.
So that they're okay?
Yeah. Well, we all know college is not something that's very cheap and it's getting more and more expensive.
Right.
And when you take a look at what the pace of inflation is versus the pace of the increase in the cost of college, the cost of college doubles based upon where inflation is. So I think ultimately the same thing with retirement, the same thing with any kind of strategy to save for anything in the future. You want to start saving as quickly as possible. Now, whether that's in a savings account, whether that's in a UTMA, a uniform transfer to minors account, or a 529 college savings plan, even if you have to start it for $100 a month or $25 a month, you're getting into the habit of saving for a future expense. We also talk about, when it comes to investing or saving money, compound interest. So as a saver, if you're significantly putting money into a savings account, and it's tax advantaged because it's whether it's a 529 college savings plan or a UTMA account, you could have that earnings that you're making on your initial deposits and now making more money for you the next year. So compound interest and compound savings is how people can afford to send their kids to college. So a lot of times I get, parents coming in saying, hey, my child is 5, my child's 10, or my child is about to go to college. And my question to you, Gladys, with that question is, well, who do you think has the advantage on starting to save for college? The person who has more time or the person who's ready to send their kid off to college?
The person that has more time.
The person who has more time,
That's
right? Because,
yes.
So I think, speak to a professional. Obviously more is better to save, but most people have a budget and they put a certain percentage away. So what I say to parents coming in to talk to me is that whatever you can do up to a certain point is better than doing nothing. Right?
Exactly.
And whether you open up a 529 plan or just a UTMA account at a local savings, it's still more to have when your child does go to college than not having anything. And I think ultimately, once your child does get up and go off to college, which most parents dread, maybe some because some will actually like it, but I think ultimately when they're off, there are other options, right? So when your child goes off to college, there's work-study programs that they can do, right? They could be working a part-time job. They could be working for the university or college that they're going to. So there's a lot of ways that you can lower the cost of going to college. You just have to be resourceful and you have to speak to the right professionals. So when anything comes around in life, what I would say is that there's always somebody out there that can help you. You just have to know where to look.
That's right.
And I think ultimately, as a financial advisor, I like to call myself like a quarterback. Like, hey, you need help with your taxes? I have a great accountant that should go speak to. He's right here in town. He's great. I know him. I know what kind of work he does.
Right.
And make sure that that person's doing the right thing to help you save money on taxes. If you have a situation where you have some stock options at work and they just vested, and all of a sudden you have this huge capital gain, well, there's strategies that you can utilize to help you save money on those taxes. Most people don't know about them.
Correct. I
But
don't.
but is it the fault of the person not knowing about it, or is it the fault of the situation? So what I would say is seek advice.
Seek advice. And that's why I come to you all the time.
Absolutely, right. Exactly.
And I highly recommend you because
Thank you.
sometimes, talking about finances can be hard. And sometimes these terminologies are, for the average person who's not a quarterback like Richard Leimgruber, it could be a little daunting, right?
Sure.
But you always find a way to explain things in a way that people can understand it.
Relatable,
And
right.
really, very, very. And you're very passionate about what you do, and it shows all the time.
Thank you.
And
I think that's, I'm passionate because, again, going back to I was in the pizza business, I was struggling. I made it. I was able to plan, and I was able to see the fruits of my planning. And I'm a living proof that anything is possible in life. You just have to plan it, and you have to have the help of somebody who can help you implement those strategies, right? And I think ultimately when it comes down to it, we all can use a little help here or there, right? One of the things that I also, explain to people who are just starting out working with me is the past is the past. Yes, you've probably made mistakes, and hopefully you've learned from them. But I want to look moving forward positive. Here are all the positive things that we can look at. Yes, it hurts to rehash the mistakes that you made, but it's a valuable lesson. And if you're not using those lessons to help motivate you to not make those mistakes anymore, then I think that's a mistake. I think that we need to just look forward, be positive about everything, and just make the best of everything, right?
Yeah, and you know what? When I was in healthcare, I think I was probably 19 when I started, and I never opened up a 403B or a 401. And I think about 12 years later, I had a good friend, may she rest in peace, who actually sat me down and said to me, I don't care if you donate $5 into that 401k account, you're going to do that because you have to start somewhere.
Sure.
And I said to her, but I'm a single mom and every penny counts for me. She's like, yeah, but you know what? You're not actually saving those pennies for later on in the future.
Sure.
So just do it. You can find like $5 to put aside and start that 401k.
Right.
And it was the best advice she ever gave me. And
Yeah.
I'll never forget that.
Yeah, and again, out of sight, out of mind is what we say. If you're systematically saving, right, and you're putting money in every week or every paycheck, those are investments or dollars that you don't see anymore because they're not in your local checking or savings account, and you
Correct.
kind of forget about it, right?
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to where to put those dollars once you save it, that's where a financial advisor can help you with understanding risk, right? Because you could put money in cash or a money market, you could put money in stocks, you could put money in bonds, you could put money in mutual funds, ETFs. There are so many products out there. I don't know all of them, right? And so I think ultimately, it's more about learning about the type of risk that you're willing to take. There are ways that a financial advisor can help you mitigate risk with certain strategies, whether that's dollar cost averaging, which is something you were explaining, putting a little bit of money every single month away,
Right.
whether it's being more diversified in your portfolio.
Right.
And one of the things that I help clients with is determining what bucket of money are you saving for? In other words, is this bucket of money there for college? Is it for retirement? Or is it for buying a new car? Or maybe, upgrading your current house into a bigger house?
Right.
And all of those different buckets and goals have different time frames. So part of what a financial advisor can do is basically help you determine what kind of risk should you be taking on that bucket of money for certain goals.
Right.
And ultimately, that's the whole thing. So some people might say, oh, I don't want to lose this money for retirement. And then I look at them and I'm like, are you 25 and you're concerned about losing money for retirement? This is where you can take more risk, right? And be more aggressive in your investments.
Right.
Somebody also might come to me and say, I am very conservative, and then you look at their portfolio and then see they're all in individual stocks, which is probably the most aggressive thing that you can do. Mm-hmm. So, it's also helpful to understand how to mitigate risk. And I think ultimately that's what a qualified financial professional can help you do as well.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. And you know what I love mostly about you? That you can also speak in Spanish.
Sí, me hablo poquito español.
Sí, pero ayuda. So to the community, it is great to be able to know that there is a financial advisor here in Mamaroneck, New York, who is local and who can also help you out in Spanish. And if you need a translator, I am here to help.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. I know a bunch of friends and family who also speak Spanish, and I would just say one other thing for young folks out there looking for an opportunity in life. What I would say is, do something that you're passionate about. If it involves helping people, I think that's great. One of the things that I really appreciate when I'm helping somebody is the thanks that you get for it. Right. Be a financial advisor. Do something that somebody's going to need your help with, right? It feels great. It feels great to help people. And I think ultimately, there's a lot of people that need help out there. So if you're listening to this and you're wondering what you want to do in life, go talk to another financial advisor and see if they're hiring. Because, we're always looking for more people to join our wonderful, career out there. It's great. It really is.
That's awesome.
And then the other thing I would say is volunteer. Put yourself out there and make sure that you're giving back to your community. Your community is the most strongest support besides your family and friends that you can have. And it's extremely important to volunteer and know people in your community, because you just never know when you're going to need them.
That's right.
In your life.
That's right. That's right.
So.
Well, Rich, I thank you so much
for
joining us here at LMC Cast.
This was so much fun. It's great. Yes.
It was fun. You. And you know what? It's great that you are just talking to the community about your expertise.
Yes.
Like you
absolutely.
said, we need help.
Whether it's me or another financial advisor, go speak to them if you need help. They're there to help you.
Thank you. And you heard it here at LMC Cast. Thanks again, Rich.
Thanks, guys.
And that is a wrap. Thank you for tuning in from the studio on the Avenue in Mamaroneck, New York. For more information on how you can book your own time in this amazing studio, visit lmcmedia.org. And if you would like to donate to this nonprofit organization, visit lmcmedia.org/donate. Till next time, I appreciate your time with me. This is Gladys Dibble signing off.